With
Thanks,
that,
Stephanie.
thank you. We are going to introduce our keynote. And I've had the pleasure of working with Terry McDonald. I think we met probably 15 years ago when Earth Resource Foundation was doing our Zero Waste Business conferences. And so Terry has been a pioneer from way back in looking at materials and how to repurpose them. And it's such a pleasure to have him. And really, like, as we're talking about uplifting people, that is what Terry's organization does, and what he really helps us, what he's going to help us look at today. And if we want to next with his bio. And so it's not just about handling the materials, but so much of what we need to do is create this new workforce. And so Terry is the executive director of the St. Vincent de Paul Society in Lane County, and up in Oregon. And like I said, he's just been doing this incredible work for so many years and leading us all forward to not just putting it in the recycling bin, but thinking more creatively. So with that, I'd like to welcome Terry and bring his presentation up. So Terry, you're up. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your knowledge.
Well, Stephanie, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm trying to figure out how to get there.
Right on the bottom of your screen, Terry, is the Start Video button.
The Start Video button.
Right at the bottom.
Great. Right. And if you want to go ahead and bring up Terry's presentation.
So next slide, Rose.
It's already up.
There you go.
Great.
Something's happening. That's not it. Well, regardless of how it goes, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Of course, in Eugene right now, it's a little bit rainy, but then that's what it normally is in Oregon. As you can see from the screen there, what St. Vincent de Paul does, of course, is generally a thrift industry. And we've been on the thrift industry forever. And what that does, of course, is allows you to actually peek into what the waste stream or the circular economy really is about. And to a large degree, that's what we do. So the result is that we have a lot of things that comes out of the waste stream, that things that people donate to St. Vincent de Paul because we have our stores and operations that really are not going to go back into the retail setting. And as a result of that, you have to figure out what you're going to do with it. And as you can see, everything from used candles to steel and brass and foam and window glass and everything else are things that come into the waste stream that we go ahead and deal with. The result is that we have to figure out how we're going to deal with those products and get them into some kind of recycled world, but also to find a way to create new products out of those. And that's really what we've been doing for a number of years. As Ryan was talking about with the mattress recycling is one thing, but can you also rebuild mattresses, or you can repurpose things out of mattresses? And if you look at the next slide that we have, you'll see two little puppies sitting there on their beds. One of the things that we do with the contents out of reused mattresses is we create a line of pet beds, dog bed. Those pet beds are very high quality because they're taking basically the same components that come out of a mattress that the person slept on, taking those usable materials out of it and repurposing them for a pet bed, which gives us a very nice value-added product out of something that would normally just be a totally waste. And as a result of that is what we've learned is that kind of activity can actually give you a substantial amount of value-added product. And that's where the waste stream has been really an education for us. And likewise, understanding how to pit the mattress or the products out of the waste stream and pair them up with what the waste stream actually the mattress or the waste stream operators want to have done, because most waste stream operators want to have product out of there. They don't really want to put them in the ground. If they get paid to take it and then they don't have to put it in the ground or up a chimney, it actually makes more money for them. And so we've been making an alliance with waste stream operators for years to pull products out of their waste streams. One of them that has been most productive of late, of course, is books. So you probably recognize that because we live in a digital world, obviously there's a lot of books that are being discarded by libraries around the world as people do more and more online stuff. And to be honest with you, libraries have to purge their books on a regular basis. They have to do that because there's a lot of books that are always being produced, but you only have so much shelf space. And so what the libraries are doing more and more is digitalizing the older books that they have that are not checked out frequently, and then discarding the actual paper product, which has allowed St. St. Paul to work with those libraries around the United States and actually even into Europe to pull the product that they would have normally just sent out for pulp and divert them into our retail operations. On any given month, St. Vincent Paul is processing about 80 to 100,000 pounds of books that we get from various sources around, and which has allowed us to create a very robust online sales for our books. We carry about 150,000 books in our online book department, as well as media. And one of the things you think of is, well, you can't really make money on media anymore because everybody's got their iPod or whatever it is. And the result of that is that there's just not a lot of money in that industry anymore. Well, the truth is there is. And so at any given day, our online media department will generate anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000 worth of generated sales online of those CDs and DVDs that we get in through the waste stream. And it's just a way of taking something and getting it back into the marketplace as well as into our retail operations. But the upcycling is what's the really fun part of it. So in the thrift industry, we have lots of different commodities that we get that just simply are not reusable. And so if you think about it, what are you going to do with used candles? Used candles are, not particularly useful. They are things that are often just discarded. I hope you can still hear me. Hello.
We hear you okay, Terry.
Oh, good. Thank you.
You're good.
Okay, good. Oh, thank you. And those candles, of course, are just one of the things that we normally discard. Well, St. Vincent Paul has been specializing for a number of years in going ahead and taking those candles, melting them down, and then creating basically bricks of wax, wax that we put into a bread pan, melt it, or let it solidify, wrap it, and sell it back to the marketplace as craft wax. You would not think that that would be a very robust business. Having said that, since we are collecting from about 100 transfer sites and dumps in this region, we get about 2 to 3 tons of that type of non-usable wax per month, which we then go ahead and melt, convert back into this brick of wax, and then sell back to the marketplace at $5 a brick. Especially this time of the year, we sell a lot of that product, and at generally about 200 to 250 blocks of wax per month, per week, which gives us another resource that would have been just waste, but turns it into a profit-making venture for us. And that's what we really try and do, is to find a way to sort of hone in on small niche markets that are actually going to give us a competitive competitive advantage in the marketplace. Another one, since we're in the retail thrift industry, all of the retail thrift industry is competing for product. And so I need people to think of St. Vincent Paul instead of my competitors in the marketplace to drop off their usable goods. One way to do that is to say we also recycle products that you would not normally recycle. And one that we're recycling a lot of right now is block styrofoam. Block styrofoam, as you know, takes up a lot of space in the waste stream. Very, very light, but it's very, bulky. And as a result of that, most consumers want to have that block styrofoam that came out of their television screen box or their furniture box or whatever else. They like to have it recycled in some manner or form. Well, we make it convenient for the consumer to drop that product off to us at our drive-through donation areas. And so if they bring that block styrofoam into my drive-through donation area, I'll take it for free. They then, of course, want to say, oh, by the way, we'll drop off your other stuff, which is good business for St. Paul, but there's no money in that particular part of the venture. The real money is made when you work with companies that produce a lot of block styrofoam and don't want to pay to take it to the landfill. And so with those companies, we charge them a fee to basically take a Gaylord size sack, it's called a cap sack, of that material from them, from their processing plants or wherever they're taking where they generate the block styrofoam. And then we go ahead and recycle that product. We recycle right now somewhere around 100 tons of block styrofoam per year. And that's increasing exponentially. One of the largest suppliers of clean block styrofoam is actually hospitals. Hospitals, because they have these cold boxes where they send, body parts around, things that have to be kept cold and shipped from place to place. These styrofoam boxes, if they place them in, that are cold boxes, they can't use them more than once. They can only be used once. So we get a substantial number of those out of the hospitals. And likewise, manufacturers or retailers of furniture have a lot of block styrofoam that comes to us, and then we go ahead and process it using the same technology that everybody has out there, which is basically either a densification process or the hot melt system. In our case, we use a hot melt. As a result of being able to produce that kind of volume, we have manufacturers of secondary products that actually want us to send their product to them. One in particular basically came to us here recently and said, by the way, when you go to Costco or you go to Target or you go to Walmart and buy a frame, that the frame is actually made out of polystyrene that you sent to us. So you can actually see a full return of your product from the waste stream back into a consumer product that's being sold off the shelves. You're also getting a premium. And that's the other part of all of this, is that the greater the volume of product you have, the more likely you're going to be able to get the premium dollar for it. So as Ryan was talking about in the previous presentation about mattress recycling and where the secondary markets were, St. Paul started recycling mattresses actually 22 years ago. And we were the first commercially viable mattress recycler in the United States. And one of the problem materials was the cotton that came out of mattresses because no one had any use for it. No one ever saved that material before. And as a result of that, we had no market for it. So it took us a while to get the manufacturers of other downstream products to accept it. But once we told them, look, we can provide you a container of this cotton material, clean, ready to use, once a month, then they were willing to retool in their industry to accept this product and then go ahead and use it in their manufacturing processes. But before that, since no one had actually done that, what happens is that no one had ever tooled up for it, so no one would accept it. So the consistency of volume, putting that product out that's clean and usable on the backside is one of the keys to this recycling-based industries. Same thing with appliances. St. Paul early on recognized that it needed to go ahead and get into the degassing, the CFCs out of appliances. So that was when in the 1990s, the chlorofluorocarbons were banned and we had to not produce them anymore, but also we needed to have them recycled out of the old machines. Well, that meant that there was a reason for us to go ahead and tool up to do that removal, because the machines that we could also have, some of which could be rebuilt, we were able to put those back into the marketplace. But the ones that we deconstructed and took the gas out of, we were actually able to do a fractional distillation to clean the used gas that came out, to put it back into the marketplace and sell it back for those residual units that needed that product on the backside. and do that at a substantial profit. So typically it costs us about $4 a pound to clean the gas. We were selling that gas out there for about $30 a pound. It was a very, very good business for a while. And of course, now that's changed and it's morphing again. So as the CFCs are no longer in appliances, and now they've actually started pulling out the HFCs, and now they're moving to a new system of what we're going to drive our appliances. We're now tooling up for the next generation of recycling. So anticipating where the market is going to go and providing a service to you, to the market, is one of the ways to make sure that you capture that part of the waste stream. So all of this just leads back to the idea that how are you going to create jobs and employment, especially for people with multiple barriers to employment, which is what St. Lucie Paul does, is to take a look at the waste stream and say, how can we find a niche market into that waste stream that will give us a way to create jobs and employment. So for example, we know that mattress recycling is a not particularly desirable business in terms of high prestige or anything else. It's also it's a deconstruction process, basically using a box cutter to pull things apart and then bale up the commodities. Well, that's an ideal job for an ex-offender coming out of incarceration as a first step back into the marketplace. And it's especially nice because since there's so much moving equipment and everything around it, you really don't have the opportunity to have a lot of visitors. Let me just put it that way. So we find that people that are really difficult to place coming out of incarceration, especially those that are pedophiles, this is an ideal place for them to work because there's nobody around there that they can prey upon. And so it's actually a very, very good steps up for those populations. It's also tactile work. Tactile meaning, you don't need specialized skills to do this work, but you also have the opportunity to advance. So if you're a cutter and you do well on that, but you want to be a baler and you want to learn how to use the hydraulic presses, then we'll go ahead and train you for that. Or if you want to be a forklift driver after that, we'll train you for that. And if you want to go down to the box truck that actually pulls the product in, we'll train you for that. So the result is that it's not a dead end. All of these waste-based businesses lead one into the next, into the next, into the next. And as a result of that, we create real opportunities for people to advance, even though they may have specifically difficult paths that they have to overcome. As it's my lead supervisor that actually runs our mattress deconstruction operation here in Eugene is an ex-offender that came out of incarceration a number of years ago for manslaughter. He now runs that entire division of my operation. So you can actually promote people up from their difficult life situations into leadership roles that actually will make it possible for them to succeed in the long term. And that's really what it's all about, is empowerment, and as well as creating that circular economy of employment, job training, and diversion from the waste stream and value-added products. So we've been doing that with all kinds of products. And the latest thing that we're working on right now is a process by which we're going to take the scrap silver and gold that we get in of our operation, which is a fair amount of that material comes in, but it's not reusable as jewelry. And we're going to smelt that down and recast it as new jewelry in our jewelry manufacturing division. And that's the product that we're just developing right now, is that process of taking that scrap, melting it, putting it back out in the marketplace. You would not think that that's a lot of material, because obviously scrap gold and silver seems like it should be very valuable, but we get about 1 to 2 pounds of gold per week through our various operations that is scrap and can't be put back into the jewelry market. And normally what we do is we just go ahead and put that product out into the scrap market, but I would rather recast it as a value-added product. And we have that ability to do that because of the molds associated with our glass factory. So our glass factory, Aurora Glass, has molds that we use to cast items in the glass that are decorative. Well, of course, those decorative objects, of course, are being cast on those graphite molds. Graphite molds are also what you use in the jewelry industry. So we're actually able to take molds back and forth from the various parts of the organization to go ahead and create a new product line that didn't actually cost us any money to tool up for. So that kind of creativity and the opportunity to take advantage of niches in the marketplace really is important. And all I can say about all of this is that if you get into this pathway of looking at the waste stream as an asset, as a place where there is money to be made, and if you work with your partners in solid waste districts and to the landfill operators, all of us are actually interested in the same thing. We all want to create a way to make a living, make a profit, but also to divert stuff from the waste stream that can come up with a new use. And working with those districts really has been a very key component of what St. Vincent de Paul does. Well, if we move to the next slide, you can see some of what that's all about for us. And that is, of course, it creates an enormous amount of opportunity for St. Vincent de Paul to fulfill its mission. And that, of course, is to help low-income people. And by using the metrics that we have, we know how much materials we've saved, but we also know how much impact we've had in our communities. And by impact in our communities, St. Vincent de Paul, employs about 700 people, but also helps about 40,000 people per year in a variety of life situations, and mostly having to do with people that are homeless. So at any given night, we're housing about 500 to 600 homeless individuals. We have about 1,600 units of affordable housing that we help try and put those people into as they move out of homelessness out into community. When we have bad winter events or fires out here in this part of the world, we're able to take the resources that came out of the waste stream and actually get the blankets and the bedrolls and the shoes and everything else that people need in emergency situations and pull it right out of the supply of the products. All of this would not happen unless we had control of a substantial amount of what the waste stream generates. It's not a liability. The waste stream is a real asset. And if there's any message I can get to you, is you should probably spend some time at the dump or the transfer site in your community. Because at the end of the day, that's where the real resources are. And so finding a way to discipline that material, get it into reuse in one form or another, or else upcycle it into new products, you will find a way to create a better world for all of us, all based upon the circular economy. And there you have it.
Great, Terry. Thanks so much. You're getting lots of applause for the work that you are doing. So I think there was a lot of chat, of course, your website and how people can get involved. And also, if you could talk a little bit about how this work is spreading. So, St. Vincent de Paul has facilities all over the country. How are you working with the other thrift shops, Salvation Army, Goodwill? Is there a community around that? And I think all of us want to know where to buy the candle wax and how we can start our own wax recycling business. So if you could share a little bit more about how that community, the thrift community, is working.
Sure, Stephanie.
And how we can.
I appreciate that, Stephanie. If you take a look at my final slide, or the next slide over, I think it's the next one or the next one after that, we've created a grouping called the Cascade Alliance. And that's a group of nonprofits around the United States, not just St. Vincent de Paul's, but any nonprofit that wants to do waste-based business development. That industry, that trade group, the Cascade Alliance, works among itself to bring the best practices with waste-based business development. So whether it's in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where Adrian Wells' operation, the Greater Bridgeport Community Development Corporation, does mattress recycling, or the mustard seed in Florida that is now moving into retail thrift, or any of the other groups that we work with, we mentor those groups and work with them to develop waste-based businesses, and it could be everything from the car lot to retail thrift to mattress recycling or whatever else. We also share the best practices. So if anybody is interested in participating with the Cascade Alliance, just get a hold of us at St. Vincent de Paul, svdp.us. and we'll be happy to see if we can help you mentor into more waste-based businesses.
Terrific. And I think if we can pull up his last slide, it'll show that.
Yeah.
And I think that the next direction, one more. Great. And if we can leave that up so everybody can look at that. Terry, you talked a lot about working with incarcerated people. And what are the hurdles for that? Because I think, St. Vincent de Paul, Goodwill, Salvation Army, you have some really great tools in place, but how can, our businesses in our cities leverage that? And I would say not only the incarcerated, but those that are mentally or physically challenged, and accommodating those. And I think you have a good work model. And, what is that employment track?
Well, sure. So there are you asked multiple questions in there. Incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, or refugees that have multiple barriers to employment, meaning they have no either history or they don't speak English very well. That kind of tactile manufacturing type of operations, like mattress recycling or the glass factory, some of the other activities, are actually pretty ideal for that, because you don't have to come in with any skills and you don't even need to speak English. In our facility for mattress recycling in Woodland, California, there are 13 different languages being spoken at any time on the floor.
Wow.
And so, again, small, easy, tactile manufacturing type of operations or deconstruction in this particular case is an ideal workplace. In the thrift industry, people with metal barriers, high-performing DD, that particular population works very well in support areas associated with the thrift industry. So whether, and again, that's what you see with Salvation Army or Goodwill or whatever, is that you can have simplified tasks associated with that processing, like hanging garments that go into the retail operations. Those kinds of easy, repetitive tasks that do not require any specialized skills are one way to cast away to help those people. We also found an interesting new program, and that is that since we have so much affordable housing, we have a need to have that a lot of rebuilding of sheds and so forth associated with our mobile home parks. We're having our area high schools manufacture those sheds for us in their vocational training programs, especially in rural Oregon, where their dropout rate is very high. And keeping kids in the craft programs like the wood shop is one way to keep them engaged, but also give them a skill as they go forward. There's lots of ways to do this, but we're running out of time.
Great. Terry, amazing as always. I encourage all of you to go to the website first and then get involved in your local community. I think we've really put a burden on a lot of our thrift shops, and because most of them, like Terry's nonprofit, are doing so much more, and their thrift shops are important in the recycling, but the work that they're doing with people is what's most important. So really supporting them. Don't give them your junk, give them something that is useful. Also, when we talk about diversity and equity, thank you for the work that you're doing. 13 different languages, that's unbelievable. And just the diverse workforce and supporting our young people. Thank you again, Terry. It's always an honor to work with you and have you speak at our conferences.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, everybody. Keep the chat going, keep sharing. We will either get to answer all your questions and comments, or get those answered throughout the rest of the day.